The home of South Dakota's first governor was built from locally made brick.
And it was built in 1885. This house actually is 3,600 square feet, which is pretty darn good size. It has the upstairs, there are 4 bedrooms and a sitting room on the second floor, and then there's a 3rd floor tower, which is very small, but it's more the style of the house. It's an Italianate house, and you had a tower when you had an Italianate house. And so that's why they have the tower. And downstairs, of course, is the dining room, the governor's office, a double parlor, and the kitchen area. There's a front and a back stairway, the good stairs and the serviceable stairs that they used all the time.
The grand home of Arthur and Margaret Millett was a dream achieved after a long period of both joy and suffering. Arthur Calvin Millett was born near Muncie, Indiana. He earned an undergraduate degree from the University of Indiana in 1863. In 1864, he joined the Union Army, taking the place of his drafted brother who, on account of health reasons, was unfit for service. Millett was involved in several engagements during the war, but spent much of his time in the service ill and in the hospital. After the war, he earned a law degree from the University of Indiana, married his longtime sweetheart Margaret Wiley, set up a practice in Muncie, and was elected to the Indiana State Legislature. But Mrs. Millett developed some health issues. Mr. Millett, thinking that his wife might benefit from a change of climate, traveled west. He looked at several locations, finally settling on Dakota Territory. Millett turned to a friend and prominent fellow Hoosier for help finding a job.
Benjamin Harrison was from Indiana also, and a friend of his. And Dakota Territory was opening up, and they needed a registrar of deeds, and they needed people. And so Benjamin Harrison sent Arthur to be the registrar of lands, and he was sent to Springfield. And they spent almost a year in Springfield until the homesteads were pretty well filled up.
When the railroad reached Watertown, there were more deeds and claims to be registered. The Milletts moved there in 1880.
They lived above the registrar's office, he and Maggie and their 4 children.
Millett was elected to the territorial legislature in 1883 and elected territorial governor in 1885, the same year he had his house built. Millett strongly supported the idea of dividing the territory between north and south rather than east-west along the Missouri River.
He always had the good of the people first. Always.
When South Dakota became a state in 1889, Arthur Millett was elected governor. But a year later, a political disaster for the governor and an economic crisis for the state.
It was found that the state treasurer had absconded with about $250,000 and Millett, as I said, was such an honorable man. He had no knowledge that this had happened. He had no part of it, but he felt responsible because W.W. Taylor had been his treasurer. And so he sold all of his property, and the only thing he kept was this house because of his family. But he sold all of his property to give the money to the state, which he had no obligation to do.
But almost everything he had wasn't enough. He sold the house and went back to Indiana. He restarted his law practice to stay afloat, but the Milletts moved again to Kansas to live with one of their children.
Sadly, during that period of time, quite abruptly, he was only 52 years old, he became ill and he passed away.
And so began a long period of decay for the Millett house.
Eventually, it was an upstairs and a downstairs an apartment, and it fell into disrepair. And in the 30s, it was in, I understand, terrible, terrible condition. The railroad is just down the hill from us, and I guess it provided housing for many of the hobos that rode the railroad. And how it survived is a miracle.
It was scheduled for demolition in 1943, but a group of caring citizens raised $500 and purchased the house. Repair, renovation, and restoration work has been going on ever since.
The centennial of South Dakota brought new life into everything. It was operating, but that really brought significance to, hey, look what we've got. And so that, I think, gave it another shot in the arm of people being proud to have it, and that it is a treasure to have.
The Berdahl Rolvog House, the Pickler Mansion, and the Millette House. 3 homes built by South Dakota pioneers with 3 things in common. Children grew up in these homes. The homes were only saved from the ravages of time because a few people cared. And the homes represent state history in a way that photographs and documents cannot. Visitors can stand where pioneers stood and perhaps think about an average moment on an average day. The aroma of supper in the oven, the sound of music from a distant room, and the clatter of dishes when the time came to gather round the table with the family.